Should I form a company?
Usually, when the amount of income becomes substantial and it's pretty evident that you're in the business of renting equipment, making a profit from that equipment, we'll recommend that you set up a separate entity for it. Usually that's done by registering with the Secretary of State initially as a limited liability company or an LLC.
What is an LLC?
It's strictly a legal term. The Secretary of State understands that term. All the attorneys in the world understand that term, but the IRS does not understand the term and does not have a definition for an LLC, nor do they have any tax forms to report income or expenses for an LLC. So in that case, the Internal Revenue Service allows the taxpayer to choose how they want to be taxed. And they really give you four choices. One is if you do absolutely nothing, then the IRS is going to call that a disregarded entity, and those expenses and income will be reported on Schedule C of your return. Your second choice, if there's more than one member of the LLC, would be to report the income and expenses as a partnership. Your third option is to report as a regular corporation, similar to the big companies like Delta Airlines or Coca-Cola, but you run into a situation where you're going to be double taxed. The corporation is going to pay tax on the income, then you're going to want to get the money out of the corporation to use yourself, and the only way to get it out is either as a dividend, which you're going to pay taxes on again, or a salary that you're going to be paying taxes on again. And then the fourth option is the one that most people will choose, is to be taxed as a Subchapter S corporation. Sub-S corporations are what are referred to as pass-through entities. So the corporation itself pays no taxes. The income or loss from the corporation is passed directly through to the taxpayer's 1040 and reported on that form. Now the advantages there are that we can somewhat manipulate the amount of tax, particularly the self-employment tax, Social Security and Medicare tax, that would be paid if you had reported all that income on Schedule C by giving you what's considered a reasonable salary from the Sub-S corporation and then reporting the remainder of it as Subchapter S income, which is not subject to the Social Security and Medicare tax.
Would it make sense for film workers to form an LLC this year?
Well, again, making the choice to form an LLC is going to be an individual situation where you have to take into account all your expenses and what you anticipate your income is going to be for the year. You can make late elections late in the year and go back and make it retroactive back to the first of the year if you're not sure whether it's going to be to your advantage to form one right now or wait until, say, October, November of this year to do it. I would say that the most important thing is going to be the amount of net income that you end up generating from the LLC or the business that you're in. And that amount needs to be somewhere around $15,000 net income for it to make sense to set up a separate company. The reason for that is before you're going to really start putting money in your pocket in savings from setting up the separate entity, you have to generate enough money to pay the additional expenses. There's a separate tax return that has to be prepared for a Sub-S corporation. There's additional record keeping. There's registration fees with the Secretary of State's office. So there's a number of additional costs and time that you're going to have to invest in running a separate business as a Subchapter S corporation that you need to overcome before it really becomes profitable to you. And generally, the way I look at it, that's about $15,000, maybe a little bit greater than that. In prior years, that number was probably higher than what we're looking at today, where you did have the option of being able to deduct your expenses directly on your individual tax return on Schedule A. So that number has dropped down over the last couple of years in anticipation of going into the 2018 tax year.
How do you form an LLC?
There's a number of ways that you can form one. There's a number of online companies that will do that for you. Certainly, most attorneys will help you set up a limited liability company. You can do it yourself by going directly onto the Secretary of State's website, or accounting firms will help you with it as well. We set up LLCs for clients, probably several of them every week. And generally the setup cost is around $500, including the registration fees for the Secretary of State's office.
You mentioned reporting equipment rentals on Schedule C and Subchapter S corporations. Which one is better for film people?
Well, again, it's going to depend on the amount of activity that you have, the amount of income that you're generating. If your income, again, is relatively small, I'd say $2,000, $3,000 from rentals, then I'd just put it on the front of the return. We can take expenses up to the amount of your rentals, and that would be perfect for you. If, in fact, though, that your rentals are a substantial amount, getting up into the tens of thousands of dollars, we have some clients that report well over $200,000 a year in equipment rentals. You're going to want to use Schedule C for that because it really is a business where you're trying to make a profit from those rentals. And you do have the ability, particularly next year where everything that you buy can be 100% expensed in the year that you buy it, you may generate losses that can be used against your W-2 income as well. So it really depends on the size. Now, again, if the income is going to substantially exceed the amount of your expenses, then I probably would recommend that you form an LLC and report as a Subchapter S corporation in order to avoid some of the self-employment taxes that are going to be inherent in reporting on Schedule C.